Some interesting things coming out of Illinois. This is Alan with Quarter Horse Arms, and in this podcast, I want to talk about the Illinois governor and the PICA, Protect Illinois Community Act. So, Illinois already has some relatively restrictive gun control laws. If you go up to Cook County, Chicago, they've got even more. In order to get weapons, you have to get an FOID, which is a firearms ownership identification, which means you have to register the firearm that you have purchased. So what happened recently was J.B. Pritzker, who's the governor, has been slamming through some laws. And, what he had done was signed into legislation, with ghost guns, requiring serialization and banning self-assembled guns. All right, stuff that, for the most part, the ATF and the federal government took care of. For example, there's been significant changes to ghost guns. They do require serialization. And I'm not sure what he means by self-assembled guns. I'm assuming he's going after 80%ers. However, in the most recent load of garbage, he went after high-capacity magazines. He wanted to extend red flag laws. And then he banned switches on semi-automatics that would make them full automatic. Well, first off, they call those machine guns. Second, unless you have a pre-86 machine gun, you're violating federal law. And I don't know what other switch he could be referring to unless he's thinking about the forced reset triggers and stuff. As far as I'm concerned, quite literally, this is just another case of a politician not knowing their ass from their elbow when it comes to firearms, the terminology, how they're handled, and in this case, apparently what even federal law is. So he went ahead and came up with this ban. And at last count, more than 80 sheriffs said they would not enforce the law. The governor responded with, well, I'll just fire them. But then if you look at the Illinois law, it's at the sheriff's discretion, so they're really not doing anything other than taking a political stance. And they also pointed out, and I'm not sure how Illinois law works, but they said, any kind of regulatory enforcement is the responsibility of the Illinois State Police. And, that kind of says, all right, well, we're not going to enforce it, and you know what? We don't have to anyway because it's really not our job. And then the question that was voiced was, and in fact, the judge did this, and I guess let me backtrack. 800 people at last count brought a lawsuit to the state, and the judge stated that when he put the injunction in, or barred the law from being enforced for that group of people, he said something to the effect that the law would not stand up to scrutiny in the way that it restricted the rights of the individuals to own firearms. And reportedly, and again, this is just hearsay, but that there were a few Democrat lawmakers in Illinois that have said that it's not likely that his law would hold up against constitutional or on constitutional grounds. So, what did he ultimately want? Well, he wanted assault rifles to be registered. I've said it before, I really feel bad for the Armalite Corporation, because I'm willing to bet that if you ask a ton of non-firearms owners, well, maybe even some firearms owners, AR does not stand for assault rifle. Unfortunately, it has the same first letter, so you wind up kind of taking it in the shorts there. He wants an assault rifle registration. How are you going to enforce that? That's number one. Number two, he wanted to ban full auto conversions. Well, there's already a ban on it. In fact, the law is pretty severe. The federal law for having a machine gun that's unregistered is, I don't know, somewhere around 10 years in prison and $250,000 fine, which most of us probably couldn't afford anyway. And if we could afford that amount of money, we would have bought a pre-86 machine gun. So all in all, what he was doing was, more political grandstanding, which gave people that are pro-Second Amendment also an opportunity to come out and political grandstand and go, Governor, you're a dumbass. And frankly, he was. I don't know how many people have assault rifles or the industry attempt at modern sporting rifles or MSRs. And how would you actually find out? I mean, even if you had access to my A&D book, my acquisition and disposition book, a lot of the items like the receivers for the AR and AK platforms that came through were listed as receivers, meaning the people were going to construct a weapon on their own. So I don't know if they were constructed as something. I don't even know if they were constructed at all. And then the other part is, what about the 80%ers that were pretty much legal up till, October of 2022? So there's no real way. And even if I lived in Illinois, it's not the state's, it's not under their purview for them to come check my logbook for firearms. And the other question then becomes is, if you owned one of those weapons, unless you had a jackass neighbor who would turn you in, and I know they exist. I have one that reported to the sheriff automatic weapons fire, which there was, but it was done legally. The weapons were registered, and at any rate, to go back to the original subject, how are you going to find out who's got them? When I travel out with firearms, it doesn't matter whether it's a handgun or a long gun. They're usually in a case, and if it's on my hip in a holster, it's concealed. So how are you going to enforce a law? I know many of you are parents, or you have, or managers or supervisors. One of the things you never do is create a rule or a law or a policy that you can't enforce. It's stupid. So in this case, was the governor grandstanding? Yes. Do I think that Pritzker had a real community thing in mind? I'm sure he did, but this was to appease voters. And at this point, at least one judge that heard the case decided smartly to go, you can't do that to people. My understanding was that even the legislators in Illinois did not have adequate time to review this law. And we're finding, again, party lines. Is this Democrats versus Republicans? Well, it's a Democrat-controlled House legislature in Illinois. Is it us against them? Well, the voting went that way, yes. I'd like to think about it as hopefully people that are vehemently opposed to guns going up against people that are vehemently pro-Second Amendment. I'm not sure that's the case, but, it doesn't matter. At the very least, what the key point is, the governor tried banning stuff that's in part already banned, creating a law that's unenforceable. And not only that, the sheriffs have said, we're not going to do it. I think it was over 80. I think there's 103 counties or somewhere around 100 counties in Illinois. Well, you got a whole bunch of them going, nope, sorry, ain't going to happen. And that's to their credit, not to mention the credit of the 800 people or organizations that brought the lawsuit to the state. Okay, so I look forward to your comments. I look forward to questions. And you can reach us at voice or text 919-808-6480. You can email to info@quarterhorsearms.com. And you can obviously check out our website at quarterhorsearms.com. This is Alan with Quarter Horse Arms in Snow Camp, North Carolina. You guys have a great day.